So you cover a couple of big automakers, Toyota and Volkswagen. Of course, getting you off the Volkswagen beat, but you're still you've been covering it all year, so you're stuck here talking about it. Toyota had a pretty big year, at least an eventful one, in that they changed CEOs for the first time in quite a while.
Yeah, and this one doesn't have the magic name, right?
He doesn't.
So we're transitioning we've transitioned now from Akio Toyoda, who moves up to chairman, to Koji Sato, who is a friend of the U.S.
How so?
He's intimately familiar with the U.S., operations, and with U.S. dealers.
Well, he was the head of Lexus, which is nominally a global job, but we know it's really a North America focused job.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And Lexus dealers really liked what Sato-san delivered for them, where he positioned the brand. And I think they were very excited to hear that, not that it was a big surprise that that Koji Sato was going to be the pick, the right-handed reliever coming in. Mm-hmm. But I think everybody was happy that that was going to happen.
I mean, Lexus dealers have been happy for a long time. They mint money, high volumes, good margins. It's a very good business to be in. But Koji Sato brings more to it even than that. He was already at Lexus one of the real leaders in at least thinking about what EVs could be like for this company that has been sort of slow to the EV game. And he really changed the tone of conversation around EVs at Toyota.
Yeah, and it's funny. I think there's the internal debate, right? It's the same as the external debate. Do you go all EV? Do you transition slowly and more naturally, let consumers come along? And they had that debate within Toyota. Akio was clearly on the let's bring the consumers along with us, because otherwise we're getting out ahead of our skis. So Sato was a little bit more aggressive, wanted to see what could be done. But as a result of that internal debate, I think that they're finally getting there, right? They're not quite where their competitors are yet. They're clearly behind where the competitive EV set is. But they also have you never make money betting against Toyota, right? You don't have to be an auto reporter for very long to know that.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and it was interesting because I think there's still a solid debate, and I think there's a lot of logic behind Akio Toyota's viewpoint that if the effort is to fight global warming, then it's carbon, not gasoline per se, that is the enemy, as he calls it. Sato came in, he really didn't change any targets or any investment, but he just changed the way they talked about EVs. And some of that was while they had the debate and Akio decided where they were, Toyota, like Honda and some others, went to the auto show in China and were like, this whole world market is leaving us behind if we don't get a little more serious on it. And since then they've added money to the plan, talked about some really exciting technologies and plans, at least a little bit about the future.
Yeah. I went to the Tokyo Mobility Show,
Japan
the Japan Mobility Show, the former
Tokyo
previously known as the Tokyo Auto Show, and in October, and I was struck by we both know what auto shows are like here. There was a lot of excitement around that auto show, but I was also struck by the lack of production vehicles. Right? It was
lots of concepts.
Lots and lots and lots of concepts of all of the things that we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And there were some very cool concepts there. There was a lot of technology. I didn't only ask how it works, but why they would want to do it, But that's a different story. But they had some really cool stuff, and it's going to take them a while, but they'll get back into it.
Some progress, at least announced progress on solid state batteries. Some cool new products. Here in the U.S., in North America, we're starting to see some green shoots, if you will, of EV production. Probably first in Kentucky, but eventually in North Carolina.
Yeah. Well, we've certainly got the shoots in there. There's a huge, absolutely huge investment going into
They just keep expanding it.
Liberty,
in
North Carolina. Yeah, you're talking about we're in now well over $13 billion investment in Liberty, North Carolina.
This is just for batteries.
Just for
hybrid batteries and EV batteries.
Yes.
Mostly hybrid batteries.
Mostly hybrid batteries. They were going to have 2 lines for hybrid batteries. They're not going to have 10 lines for hybrid batteries, which tells you something about their strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting to note, they haven't said this, but it's not just going to feed Toyota, obviously. These are going to feed vehicles coming from Subaru, too.
Makes sense.
Subaru.
Makes sense. So the product front, we, of course, saw the new hybrid, the new Toyota Prius. People are talking about this one a little differently. It's maybe a little less of a aerodynamic science experiment and a little, I don't know if we want to call it sexy, but at least a little more edgy than some of the hybrids of the past.
They broke the egg? Is that what you're trying to say? Yeah.
Crack.
They cracked the egg. Okay. They cracked the egg. It's certainly a much different design from an external standpoint. It's funny that they, if you look at the numbers, they actually gave up a little bit of fuel economy, which is what, the Prius has always been, cutting edge hybrid fuel economy. They gave back a little bit to go to the sexier shape, and it's selling relatively well, so it's a good bet. It's not my cup of tea. It's really they lost some headroom, which was a problem before. The back seat is now a little short, especially, but it's the sales. The numbers don't lie. They're selling pretty well.
For the non-hybrid customer, Toyota has a very important launch coming for this model year,
this
the
month.
new Tacoma.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be Taco Tuesday all month long, right? Yeah, the 2024 Tacoma is a complete redesign, the first full-up redesign in 14 years. It is from just a comfort standpoint and a packaging standpoint, a much improved version, technology standpoint, a much improved version over the previous generation.
Well, since the last design, that industry has died and been resurrected again, right? GM and Ford and all the Detroit 3 got out of midsize pickups or compact pickups, and then they started coming back to them when Toyota just kept making money off of them.
Resurrection, it's a miracle, right?
It's a miracle.
Yeah, and in the process, Toyota has locked down that segment, even though it keeps pulling back. It keeps losing for every new competitor. It loses a little bit of market share, but that's okay. The volumes keep going up, right?
The volumes keep going up.
So lose a little bit of market share, but it makes it up in volume. It's not quite the market share king that it was, which it used to be over 65% of that market when everybody else bailed. Now it's still just around 40.
Very strong in such a big segment.
Very strong, and especially for such a profitable vehicle. It's the franchise vehicle. If you talk to Toyota dealers and you say, okay, which one wouldn't you give up?
More than the Camry? More than the RAV4?
Yeah. I think they'd be willing to give up even RAV4 before they gave up the Tacoma.
Wow. It feeds into everything else, right? It gives them something to compete in the pickup segment where the Tundra has always been kind of an also-ran. But it also gives them something that's kind of affordable and not just a high-end truck.
Yeah, and it's an aspirational truck, right? I can tell you as
for its segment.
Its segment, yeah, it's an aspirational truck. I can tell you that within my family, my son would like nothing more than to have a new than to play Michael J. Fox and have a new Tacoma pull up in his driveway. That's not going to happen.
All right, well, let's turn from Asia's largest automaker to Europe's largest automaker that is here in the U.S. Volkswagen. Been kind of a quiet year for Volkswagen.
Certainly on a product front, they had a quiet year product wise. They did launch a redesigned Atlas, which got some much needed improvements in the Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport. It really brought those two SUVs, updated them, made them far more competitive. But other than that, it was really quiet. The big thing that happened this year for Volkswagen is they saw their volumes of ID4, available, let's put it this way, their available volumes, much improved because the production has been localized to Chattanooga now from Germany. They used to get them in trickles, and then they opened the floodgates, and unfortunately they opened the floodgates right as the EV market seemed to kind of peter out a little bit with maybe some penetration issues into the broader mass market.
Well, look, all the incumbent brands, trying to sell in that subcompact crossover really have been facing an onslaught from Tesla, which already had a very popular vehicle in the Model Y, and have cut the prices, and it's put a lot of pressure on the ID4, also on the Mustang Mach-E and Nissan Ariya. I mean, you name it.
Yeah, the difference is that unlike some of these other automakers, VW purposely did a 50-state strategy, right, on their retail model for EVs. They got fantastic buy-in from their dealers. Over 99% of their dealer network said, "Okay, we're in. We'll sell them." And they said, "Okay, well, we'll give them to you." They finally got it there, and a lot of these guys are facing some growing inventories because they're the early, both from Tesla and from there being a little bit of early adopter wear and tear, I guess.
Well, yeah, or beyond those early adopters, it's getting into the mass market. Even the early mass has been a challenge, especially in the middle of the country.
Yeah, in the middle of the country where the distances are real, and the charging infrastructure is not.
One of the other big developments, or one of the things brewing in the background for VW has been the launch of the Scout brand. Scott Keogh, the former VW brand chief, was put in charge of it, really trying to keep it separate. They're building a factory, and then the news recently popped. VW hasn't confirmed it, but it looks like Magnus Steyr was contracted to do something. Development was what was reported. Whether that turns out to be the case, it's not going to be manufacturing, presumably, as they're building the big plant there in South Carolina.
Yeah, this is all really interesting, and I have to tell you, the report from the German media that of Magnus Steyr's interest here, or this contract, and we don't know the details yet as we're recording today. It's really interesting to me because the development, I was under the impression, was locked, or at least for the most part. So that it was all done in Wolfsburg, that it was done prior, this new rugged EV SUV platform was all set up before Herbert Diess left, and that it was all locked, and that Audi was going to use it as well, or wanted to anyway. So I'm not quite sure what Magnus Steyr is working on or what they're going to do. It would make more sense to me if they were to operate the plant, right? Because they could operate the plant.
Right.
They have experience operating those plants and operate it cleanly as a subcontractor for both Scout and for Audi. And that keeps the nexus point away, depending on how, we still don't know yet, really importantly, how Scout vehicles are going to be retailed.
Right. Well, it seems that they are not eager to sell them through VW dealers or Audi dealers, for that matter.
You could say that, yeah.
And so it struck me that if we're to take that Austrian report, Austria is where Magnus Steyr is based, so I'm inclined to think they had pretty good sourcing, but we don't know for sure. But maybe that was part of an effort to keep some distance between Wolfsburg and, the U.S. Volkswagen dealers, to say, hey, it's not so much a Volkswagen product. This is an independently contracted product.
Good luck.
Dealers are not going to go for that either way, are they?
Yeah, they're not going to buy that argument any more than they're going to buy any other argument that keeps these vehicles, which they don't have in their lineups,
and have been advocating
for, and have been wanting for decades. That if it keeps them from selling them, they're not going to buy that argument.
How's business going otherwise for Volkswagen?
Otherwise, they've got the same issues that they've always had. They've got this internal desire to be relevant, to have a 10% U.S. market share across their many brands, and that's a tall order to hit in a market especially when you're going all EV, which they've committed to do.
Yeah,
that gets a lot harder to hit.
It's always been a challenge for them at their sort of price point.
Yeah.
To gain the market share that they want, and going to EVs, as we've seen, thus far, it just adds to the affordability challenge that the whole market's facing.
Yeah, if you look at them, right, they have been trying to figure out the U.S. market since you and I were kids, right? Since we were both in grade school and not in the later grades of grade school, right? So they've been trying to figure this out. They've spent millions and tens of millions of dollars trying to figure out the U.S. market. And to return back to that place that they were in 71 and 72 when they had the Beetle and the bus and they were this cultural icon. They've been trying to get back there forever and just have not figured it out because they can't figure out what they are. If they're a premium brand, because they want to be able to charge for the German engineering, but they also want to be the Volks people, right? They want to be the people's car.
People's car.
And it's a conundrum here in the U.S.
Well, that's a conundrum we'll keep following in 2024. Larry Vellequette, staff reporter here at Automotive News. Thanks so much for joining me today and sharing your thoughts on the year that was.
Always a pleasure, Jamie.